So I just had a feeling about the situation that's happening in England right now. As you know, quite a few schools are suffering with a large amount of bullying and intimidation, and this has been going on in the English schools for quite some times. And in the girls' school, it's rampant. The level of bullying, suicide, cutting is almost astronomical. But they keep it very quiet here because this is seen as child-friendly country, and parents have very little rights when it comes to keeping their children safe in terms of their thinking. The state has a thinking, the government has a thinking, the community goes along with it. The community has power given by the government to oversee certain things, rarely use it, but more abuse it against people that they don't like. And so that's what goes on. But recently in the schools, the girls became a bit vicious, and it seemed like they had developed a kind of psychosis where they were not just bullying other students, but they're bullying their families, their mothers, their fathers, and taking it as an opportunity to almost enslave them. And because the schools were reluctant to deal with it at first, took it quite, sort of nonchalantly, let's just ignore it and hope for the best. It's kind of escalated to the point now where these children are really ruling the roost and running the country into the ground. So I recently had my own situation with a few young girls who had developed a bit of an obsession with me, and would daily, try to talk to me, try to get close to me. And it was really fueling a kind of a mental health situation in my town. And not just in my town, but the further towns, because I travel quite a lot for work and other things. I have to go into from town to town and go to other places. And these girls had formed almost like a pedophile ring in order to gather information and to find out what was happening at all times. And, of course, it wasn't just me. Quite a number of them had done that to their family members, their sisters, their brothers, in order to make them feel like they were in control of certain things. And unfortunately, there's a high population of mental health in this country, mentally ill people. And because the country is really bankrupt, they're unable to really keep these institutions open and keep these people where they need to be protected from everybody else. Instead, they sort of use them as these sort of pansies that they just use against anybody they feel like it, giving them sort of power to abuse who they like, and then I guess in return they get sort of free run, like, you can go where you want on no one, everyone leaves you alone, and you get sort of free reign to. And most of these people are mentally ill, they're pedophiles, they're murderers, they're psychopaths, they're rapists, they're people that have a high reoffending behavior. So they're not the people that sort of recover and then get better. They're the people that are continually looking for reasons to act out. Can I act out now? Can I act out now? Can I act out now? They almost wake up sometimes with the urge to act out, and want to ask you, can I act out now? So they start to scream and yell, and then if you scream and yell back, then it's like that you get into this sort of antisocial sycophantic, this kind of this thing where you feel like you're almost repulsed by. You ever feel so repulsed by somebody that you wanted to spit on them? That level of repulsion is the kind of people that really live in Britain. A lot of them, the majority of the people that are in this country are high on the mental health scale. And so much so you can't really tell who's mentally ill from who isn't, because it's to a certain level. To a certain extent, you have to have certain amount of mental illness to deal with mentally ill people all the time. You have to have a certain level of understanding. And if you understand it to a certain extent, it's almost like you're accepting it. Like, I understand why you wash your hands all the time, because sometimes I get that urge to, that kind of situation. So it gets to the point now where you can't really tell who the sick ones are and who the sick ones aren't. So the old mentally ill people are like the Sasquatches and the Bigfoots. They are dying out. Very few of them, they look mentally ill. They look a little bit slower. They walk a little bit slower. They look not quite right. They don't really can't add up. If you gave them sums, they couldn't really add up. They can memorize things, but they can't think of things on their own. They're not very intelligent. They have poor hygiene standards, poor health standards, poor. They just look poor. They look very poor. They look very sickly. They look very mentally distressed all the time. Even if they don't look distressed, they look sort of out of it, kind of like, sort of dazed and like they're on some sort of medication or something. And these are the new mentally ill people now, are the people that look very, very normal. I saw it myself. Actually, I went to the doctor recently because I don't know if I've said in my video, I'm sure I have, but I have post-traumatic stress disorder. It's quite a unusual disorder that most black people have post-traumatic stress disorder, but it takes very certain situations to spark it to the point where it becomes a problem. So most black people in the world have some level of trauma disorder. And it's really caused by years and years of not really dealing with murders, the rapes, the anxieties, and the torment that black people have been faced for hundreds of years. It doesn't really go away. It's like I would describe it like heroin. Like, a heroin mother has a child has trace of heroin inside of it. And a post-traumatic stress disorder, or I think they at one stage called it post-traumatic slave disorder, is a lot like that. You have these things that are left over from slavery, like remnants, like the Indians have that extra tail. Every now and again, a child's born with extra tail. In the Caribbean community and the African communities, a lot of us are born with this extra thing that we have, and we know we have it. Everybody knows we have it. Everybody has it. My mother had it. My grandmother had it. All my aunts, my cousins have it. It's very, very. It's that one thing that you question, that people look at you and question. Are you okay? And there's something there. They know there is something there, but they can't really put your finger on it. And because you're completely functional anyway, it doesn't really matter and it doesn't really affect anyone. So this is pretty much not unique for us. But for me, it became a problem some years ago, and especially within my relationships, where I was very, very sensitive inside of my relationships, and I found out why. I was very sensitive to abuse. And unfortunately, that put me in a very bad situation where I was continually wanting to figure out what this thing was by being around very nasty and abusive people. And unable to then figure out the way of resolving the problem, because when you're around nasty, horrible, abusive people, unfortunately, that part of your brain that's protecting you goes into sort of hypersensitivity. So the thing that you want to do is not the thing that you're able to do. So you're continually recreating the situation, whether you realize it or not. And I think people have become so acute to other people's sort of sensitivity that they're almost cold. So, very few people are able to really pick up on it. And so they just think of it as something, there must be something wrong, because if I walked around with my genitalia out, then there would definitely be something wrong with me, right? But if I walk around with a sensitivity that is normal, there's got to be something wrong because I'm wearing my sensitivity on my sleeve, right? So that's the thinking of maybe people in general, but certainly in a country that's dominated by get over it fast. You have no right to those feelings, and you have no right to that thought, that emotional thought. It's like kryptonite. Keep her away from me. She might cry, or something like that, or she might make me cry. So they become a little, whatever that is. But this new rise in psychopaths. Actually, I was watching a program on it where they were talking about these children, that they were recognizing from young school age that were having peculiar sort of emotional lack of sensitivity. I think it's the amygdala. I want to say amygdala part in the brain, and that part of the brain has to do with empathy and the ability to feel for other people. And especially when you're very extra sensitive, you pick up these people like an antenna, huh? Like you have gaydar, sensitive people pick up on people that have no level of sensitivity very, very quickly. It's almost like you can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can point them out, count them down, and you know that you know what's wrong with that one, you know what's wrong with that one, you know what's wrong with that one, you know what's wrong with that one. Not that I'm not able to use it in my work or anything like that, because it's not really a sensitive country. Unless I went into a field that had to do with healing, this would be very, very, I don't know, just one of those quirks that I have. But anyway, they picked on it quite early and decided that they were going to treat these children by enabling them to do certain things. And I think overall the thinking was that they would not see as an opportunity to mass manipulate and abuse this level of trust, which is really like a sort of law that protects them from anybody, by allowing them, the ability to do certain things, which inevitably turned into mass bullying and cutting and suicide and bullying in the communities, bullying of adults, bullying of people with mental health difficulties, and is now turned into a bit of a global problem. And there was a student march, the whole London burning, those were students. And there was another student march soon after that led in violence, and that was students. And it's happening all over the world now. I believe there is a huge problem with the students and this amygdala and this non-functioning amygdala.